Hello again, this is second part of selections in 3D Studio Max. I maximize my viewport and create a sphere and clone it. Alright. By default, all your objects in default layer. You could find it from Scene Explorer or Project Manager, or you could use Layers toolbar. If you don't see your Layers toolbar, simply right-click any empty area on toolbars and enable Layers. Alright, as you see, all my objects by default are in default layer. For example, I select these for spheres and create a new layer. Now we have two layers, layer default and layer 001. From layer toolbar, if you select any of your layers, there is an option here named Select Objects in Current Layer. If I click on that, all objects from this selected layer will select. For example, I this time select layer 001 and click on Select Objects in Current Layer. As you see, all objects from this chosen layer selected. Also, there is opposite of this type too. For example, I select this object, and as I know, my sphere 008 is from layer default. So when I'm selecting this object, I could enable Set Current Layer to Selections layer, and because this sphere is in default layer, as you see, now my default layer selected. Let's do that again with other layer. We have here Select Object command in toolbar. If you select it, you could only select objects. By dragging any objects in this region, we'll select it. If you hold down the Control or Command key and select other objects, by clicking on them, you will add automatically to your selection. If I hold an Alt key or Option key on Mac, you could remove them from selection. Here in toolbar we have selection region, and by default set on rectangular. If you hold down left mouse button, you will see also we have circular, polygonal, lasso and spray. So I started dragging and selecting. I could hold on the Alt or Option key and deselect some of objects. The shortcut of select objects is Q. If, for example, you're on Move command and once press Q, automatically your Select Object command will enable. But if you press Q again, as you see, your selection region type will change. For example, here I have Paint Selection region. If I enable that and start dragging, as you see, any objects while I'm dragging include in this area will select it. Also works with Alt or Option to remove from selection. It is very useful, especially when you're editing in sub-object mode like selection, by polygon or edges or vertices. Note that I enable polygon selection mode. If you set on Move Transform command, for example, and start dragging, as you see, your object surface will move unless you drag from outer side. But if you enable select objects, you could only select them. As you see, paint region selection is very useful to selecting easily your surface. And of course, we could select other types of region. I isolate this sphere by pressing Alt or Option Q, or select Isolate Selection from bottom side of 3ds Max to focus on this object. If you note that while I was dragging, backside of my object selected too. In this case, if you don't like to happen, you could simply enable ignore back facing. If you enable that and again start dragging, only surfaces with normal direction into your view side will selected and backside won't selected. I will explain editable poly selection in the future, so let's skip for now. I exit from isolate mode. Right side of the selection region we have window crossing. By default set on crossing, which means when you start to dragging any objects, even 1 pixel included in this region selection will automatically select it. But if you enable window mode, only objects will select in is fully inside of this region selection. So check again. By crossing, even 1 pixel of objects if include this region, your object will select it. But in window mode, only your object will select it when the whole objects include in this region. Even 1 pixel is not contained, your object won't select it. However, if you like to customize that like AutoCAD, you could go to Customize menu, Preferences, and from Scene Selection, you could enable Auto Window Crossing by Direction. By default, set right to left crossing, or you could swap to left to right. Which means, for example, if I enable that, right to left is equal to crossing and left to right is window. Let's check that. So if I drag from right to left, it is crossing, but from left to right, it is window. And as you see, our region border shape is solid, but from right to left is dashed lines. I bring it back to set by default. Okay. Now let's go deeper in selection editable poly. I select all objects and removing, and create a cylinder. Alright. Right click on the object, convert to editable poly. From Modify tab, if you expand Editable Poly or Selection Rollout, you will see these 5 types of selection: Vertex, Edge, Border, which mean opened sides. We don't have any border here. So allow me to remove top side. This is border, polygon, and of course element. Allow me to create a teapot to show you better. Alright, convert it to editable poly. Element, which mean any independent objects with not connected each other, something like that. And border, of course, is opened last sides. Okay, I remove this teapot. Now going back to my cylinder. The shortcut to quick select any type of selection is number from 1 to any element you have. For example, I have 5 types of selection here: vertex, edge, border, polygon, and element. So if I press 1, your vertex will select it, number 2, edge, number 3, border, number 4, polygon, and number 5 elements. Also note that if you selected your object once, click on Editable Poly in Modifier stack, automatically always your first item will select it. Now I'm going on Edge mode to show more features of selection in 3ds Max. By default, when you're clicking any edges, only this edge will select it. If I'm not wrong, from 3D Studio Max 2016, loop and ring has different shortcut types too, but I will mention that in a minute. Here we have by vertex. Imagine you want to select all these 4 edges. Instead of selecting them one by one, as you see, these 4 edges have one common vertex. So if I enable by vertex, and once I click this vertex, all edges are common in this vertex will select it. Maybe here is not look so important, but in some cases when you have a lot of edges, like my sphere here, it's increase your speed by enabling my vertex and simply once click in this cap. Alright. I mentioned before in this video, ignore back facing. Allow me to back to default settings. Ignore back facing won't allow you to enable backside while you're dragging. We have shrink, grow, ring, and loop here too. If I select one edge, if you select the ring, automatically all parallel edges will select it, and if you select loop, all connected edges will select it. However, it depends on your topology. I select this edge again. If you click any spinner here, for example top or bottom, as you see, your selection will move. I mentioned before, to add to your selection, you could hold on Control key. This shortcut also works here. If I hold on the Control key, you could simply add your selection in ring. Also for loop. Or to select loop, you could simply double click on any edge you like. Allow me to show you shrink and grow by polygon. I select one polygon here. If you select grow, your selection will expand it, and if you press shrink, your selection will reduce. Just note that it's not always work exact shrink and work with the same result. For example, if I select these faces and start growing, when I'm shrinking, it won't get back to the original selection because there were no any other expanded geometry to find what was the original selection. The shortcut for shrink and grow are Control page up and down. If you hold on the Control or Command key and press page up, you could grow your selection, and Control or Command page down, you will shrink your selection. Also, we have select by angle. I create another cylinder here, but this time I will add cap. To select these top cap of the sphere in Editable Poly, we have many solutions. For example, I could enable Polygon, select them all, and to remove these parts from the selection, you could hold Alt or Option and draw a region to remove them, or shrink them, or as I said, we have an item here by Vertex, so I enable that, click once and grow your selection. But in some cases, this process usually takes too much time. If you note that we have a common attribute in this cap, which all of them are flat, or in another word, all angles are same. So if I enable by angle, which by default is 45 degrees, it doesn't matter here. If I click once here, any surface in this cap, object selected. But we don't like this. So I could decrease the angle and click again. As you see, all faces with the same angle up to 16 degrees will select it. So I could click once here. As you see, all these polygons selected, because other neighbor polygons have more than 16 degrees difference, didn't select it. So I could increase angle and click again to select them all. In some cases, it might happen, for example, backside select too. So I recommend you to always enable ignore back facing with by angle selection to avoid any mistakes. Also, we have another selection which it is preview selection. By default is off. You could select by sub-object or multi-object. If I enable sub-object, while you're moving your mouse pointer on any surface, as you see, it's getting yellow color. So if I click, it will select it. If you hold on the Control or Command key and start moving, as you see, you have now a preview selection. To commit that, only click once. Also, I could hold on the Alt or Option key with Control to remove the selections. In sub-object mode, your selection type won't change. But if you enable multi, allow me to go polygon again to deselect them. If you move your mouse pointer on polygon, automatically polygon will select it. If you move your mouse on edges, edges will select it. And even if you move your mouse on vertex, vertices will select it. These vertices selected in preview is from backside. So it is nice to enable ignore back facing too, to make sure only the correct surface will select it. In last versions of 3D Studio Max also added quick ring selection for Polygon 2. If you enable Polygon and click allow me to off the preview selection and click on one polygon, if you hold on the shift key, you could automatically see the preview of which part will select it. Which I could select ring selection. To add them, I will hold on the Control and select one polygon. So hold on the shift key and click to add more selections. For example, you could extrude them out or in for any modeling. Alright, I undo that. Allow me to create a plane to explain convert selections. I convert this editable poly again. Alright. I enable polygon and select few of my polygons, for example these polygons. If I go to edge or vertex, as you see there is no any selection types here, but if I go back to polygon, still we have the last selection. If you need to convert your polygon selection to edge or vertex, you have two options. If you need only the borders, you could hold Shift key and click on any type of selection, which I mean vertex or edge. As you see, now we have only the border of selection. Allow me to do that again with vertex. Hold on the Shift key and click on vertex. And if you hold on the Control or Command key and click, the whole areas will select it by your selection type, Control and vertex. Of course, it works opposite. Alright, I think that's enough. In next video, I will explain more selections in Editable Poly. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos. See you in next video.